My name is Chris Mbiti. I work with PEN, which means Poverty Education Network, which is the national NGO based in Nairobi. And I would like to say the reasons why we have been doing all this work we've been doing is that we have been looking at the possible futures for this country. And the futures here, we mean the scenarios. And we are looking at these scenarios in the context of the BBI. We are looking at telling Kenyans that these are the things you need to prepare for. This may happen, this may not happen, this may happen. So we want to know what happens and how do we prepare for it. And I think it is a good way of preparing Kenyans to look forward and build strategies on how to cope with the future which is coming.
BBI
Building Bridges Initiative,
known as BBI bill. In some counties, it was 100% approval for the bill, while in others, a handful rejected, but not enough to make a change.
One county, Baringo County, remains in the list of those rejecting the intended amendment to the Constitution,
rather throwing the BBI process into a limbo.
But will BBI achieve what the 2010 Constitution could not in terms of actualizing principles of devolution? Or is the document just too good to be true?
The organizing question for this scenarios project was basically the BBI and the conversations that the BBI has been engaged with, which are national conversations around transformation. And so we proposed to FHI that it would be useful for us to consider conducting a public interest scenarios, so that we begin to figure out what possibilities and futures may arise from BBI in the manner in which it was conducted. And upon acceptance, I think we agreed that we are going to use this BBI as our organizing question, least because it was perhaps the only public discourse that was taking place about Kenya's transformation. All of us are agreed that Kenya needs to transform. I don't think there's any question about that.
This is a process we started last year, and we have walked around the regions of this country. We have been to 7 regions. What I mean by 7 regions, we have managed to cluster counties. Like in Mombasa, we clustered the counties around the coast in the city of Mombasa. We went to Northeastern and also clustered the counties to the north around in the Garissa town. We also clustered some counties in Nakuru, other counties in Kisumu, and other counties in Machakos. We were looking at and discussing members of civil society, political class, the media, and religious leaders. What do they think may be the possible things or pathways Kenya may take? And after that, we have been having a small group, or people we are calling a working group. These are people who have been checking us, and people who have been like a soundboard. Are we on the right track? Are we asking the right questions? Also spoke to key informant, key people who gave us specific information. So we spoke about, I think, 25 of them. And we'll go back to the citizen again and validate what we've been talking all about.
Surely, if anyone does an audit of the kind of work we have done, they can ascertain that there was some form of leader. People ask, who did you interview? Because this is their interviewer. So the point for this is, we are fortifying our process.
The Constitution of Kenya built certain expectations, but beneath it, there was a vacuum.
We look at Kenyans. Have they voted for anything, or do they vote against?
So this is what is likely to be for 2025 if scenario C is reflected.
The most interesting aspects of that discussion was, what if BBI fails? A lot of us think of the handshake as succeeding. We don't think about it as, what if it flops? What if they wake up the same way they woke up in March 3 years ago and decide this thing is not working for us? And so what does that mean for an entire country? And so those were some of the things and perspectives that came out, which is very difficult to think about when you're bombarded by the reggae and people are telling you can't stop this reggae.
is, first of all, is the document, then there is how it has been handled, then it has come in the context of many things, people, elections, all COVID, all those things. So today we want to understand the system. We just want to understand the environment, what we call the key focal issue and the factors, because those are the ones that tell us how has this system been working up to this point. And then after that, it begins to give us pointers to what might it actually produce. Si mtoto wa nyoka ni nyoka, right? So it will produce different things, and that's what helps us with creativity. So we call it hindsight. We want to get hindsight. We want to understand how the system has been working so that we get insight. Insight means we are learning from our past, but we are not captive to our past. Meaning that if Kenya has been growing by 6%, we can't assume that it will always grow by 6%. We need to get a lot of insight so that then we can do force it. We have a scenario here by 2025 where Kenya has majority of wenye nchi, of course, running the country.
At the scenarios workshop, we applied ourselves to the science of scenario building to really develop pathways that might suggest to us where the country is going. The deductions that we are making are arising from a very in-depth analysis of the process. And the process seems to be suggesting that Kenya is such a captured state, and the interests that capture the state are mixed, the largest of which is corporate, that it is easy to see that the contradictions between those interests is likely to produce conflict. There's a scenario where we're likely to witness intractable conflict, and in that conflict, elite interests and the elite pacts are going to play a very big role in determining where all this is going to go. You almost think we are hypnotized to sometimes elect characters that Chapter 6 would not give any chance. There's a scenario where the epitome of ujinga-ness might produce for us again very interesting dynamics. It's difficult to see a positive and heartwarming scenario, especially in a context where everything else that we go through is modeled around binaries. Those on the one side and those on the other side.
Futures thinking is science, so to speak, that looks into trying to understand what the future might look like. We do say that there are no facts in the future, so part of it is really about using data and collective intelligence from people of different disciplines to try and understand the trends that are happening around the world, and then bringing that together to try and formulate what the future might look like. And so it is important for us to be able to use this not just to help people to have much more robust and much more meaningful debates, but we have to use the information to help organizations strategize. If we can avoid the kind of crisis we have every elections because we took time to really do some critical thinking, I think that would be the most incredible result that we can receive.
No one single person has a monopoly of knowledge on any sector. Even people call themselves experts in something. So you put 6, 5, 10, 15 people around the room, and on an issue that looks pretty straightforward, you start seeing these layers and layers and layers of an issue. And you're like, And those unique perspectives really enrich the scenarios making process. That would be helpful if many people in key decision making, people who are thinking deeply about the future of industry, sectors, countries, organizations, to really adopt scenarios thinking.
I think the future is in data, the future is in scenarios, the future is in trend analysis.
We are not prepared for any serious pandemic. So if we had put some mechanism on the ground and said, look, suppose there will be a serious pandemic, how will Kenyans behave? I think we'll have been better prepared. I think scenarios is the way to go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.